everybody, it's Renee. Today we're going to talk about James 1 verses 20. It says, "For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." Now, I know this might not be a popular opinion, but the Bible doesn't endorse righteous anger for us. James states clearly, "For the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God." In other words, human anger doesn't achieve the results God desires, period. The only one truly qualified to handle anger perfectly is God himself, because he is holy, just, and never loses control. When we as humans get angry, things can quickly spiral out of control. In our anger, we often say things we regret, act impulsively rather than wisely, and damage relationships. Worst of all, we tend to convince ourselves that our anger is justified. James is straightforward in his message. Your anger isn't fostering righteousness within you. It actually stunts your growth and maturity in Christ. So what do we do with our anger? First, we must acknowledge that anger is a real and valid emotion. We feel it for a reason. However, James challenges us to slow down and ask ourselves, what does God want me to do with this? Let's consider a scenario. Imagine witnessing your neighbor kicking his dog. You've always had suspicions about how he treats the poor animal, but now you've seen it firsthand. Your gut reaction is anger, and understandably so. But James 1:20 reminds us that anger alone won't produce the righteousness of God. What are your options in this situation? You could get angry, yell at your neighbor, and escalate the situation. Probably not the best approach. Let your anger inspire a constructive response, one that actually makes a difference. Perhaps your neighbor needs Jesus more than your outrage. Building a relationship with him could soften his heart, might even help his dog. Or you might consider calling animal control, not out of anger, but out of a genuine desire for justice while maintaining your witness. No matter how you choose to respond, James is clear. Your actions should be guided by love, not rage. James especially advises us to zip your lips, put a lid on your emotions, and slow down before you explode. Anger typically follows a pattern. It begins as silent resentment, slowly building in intensity until it suddenly erupts, often causing damage. The Greek word that James uses here conveys a wrathful emotion that swells until it explodes, and once it does, you can't take it back. James urges us to short-circuit this process. Instead of letting anger fester and eventually burst, we need to pause, seek God's wisdom, and respond rather than react. So how can anger, even when justified, lead to outcomes that are contrary to God's desires? And how do you interpret the righteousness that God desires? In what ways does our response to anger affect our ability to reflect God's righteousness in our lives? Think about these things today. See you later.